Welcome to the Great Broker Podcast. I'm your host, David Houck. In each episode, I talk with elite commercial real estate brokers about the deals, decisions, and lessons that define a great career in brokerage. Real brokers, real stories. Let's go. Today, coming at you from Park City, Utah, overlooking the summertime slopes of Deer Valley, the hiking and biking trails, my guest today has built one of the most specialized and successful brokerage practices in commercial real estate. Jeff Woolson, Vice Chairman and Managing Director with CBRE's Capital Markets Group, and he leads the firm's golf and resort properties practice. He joined CB in 1991, and he's advised clients on the acquisition and disposition of golf courses, luxury resorts, ski resorts, marinas, master planned communities, and development land, all throughout the United States, over half the states, over 10 countries. He's done over $3 billion in transactions, representing owners and lenders in bankruptcy estates and institutional folks on very complex, high-profile assignments. He's always been one of CB's top producers, and a lot of brokers get awards from CoStar. They're in the CoStar top broker list. Well, Jeff is in the Golf Inc. magazine top broker list. As mentioned, I live in Deer Valley, Utah, and I saw Jeff's name recently involved with the sale of nearby Wohali, which is a luxury private mountain club and residential resorts. Jeff, while your practice is national and international, you've worked on some remarkable projects, even here, right in my backyard. So welcome to the Great Broker Podcast.
Thank you, David. Appreciate you having me. I'm working from home, so there's no guarantees on what's going to happen behind me. Dog making busting in. Today's a Friday, and we're working from home.
Well, I'm working from home, my Park City studio. Okay, Jeff, nobody graduates from college knowing how to sell luxury resorts. How did you get into commercial real estate?
I started in 1990, which for those who've been around the business long enough, that was the beginning of the end out here in California. It was a big recession. That was the S&L failures and the RTC and FDIC days. So when I got into commercial real estate, a friend of mine was in commercial real estate. He was working for Coldwell Banker Commercial, which was the precursor to CBRE. And he was an industrial broker. So he's an industrial broker, and I was trained in industrial. And I came from a background in radio advertising sales, very fast moving. It was show business, albeit the lowest rung of the ladder of show business. It was still show business. So it's fast moving, concerts, bars, restaurants, all that kind of great stuff. And I found commercial real estate, the industrial part of it, just very slow, very boring. And also I quickly realized I was a very small fish in a big pond. I think CBRE had 4 offices in San Diego and probably 140 brokers. And here I am starting to learn the commercial real estate industry. I realized that, and I think I was actually training. CBRE does a very good job of training the brokers. I remember being in a class, and this is back when, there was 4 types of real estate: industrial, office, retail, and investments. And investments were largely a multifamily and in selling other office buildings and industrial buildings. So niche brokerage wasn't even a thing. We didn't even have a hotel group then. We didn't even have an RV group, didn't have anything. And they said niche brokerage is coming. And that made sense to me. I think somebody told me a long time ago, be known for something. I know your podcast is to help educate young people coming into the business and how us older guys were successful. And I think being known for something was, somebody told me that a long time ago, and I think it's very relevant. And I said, gosh, I can't be known for industrial. There's like a gajillion guys in San Diego within my own firm that are better industrial brokers than I am. I had some contacts in the golf business through my mother-in-law. She was with PGA, and then she was working as membership sales director. And I was meeting all kinds of people in the golf business. She's personal friends with Jack and Barbara Nicholas. We would have dinner. My wife is good friends with Nan Nicholas, who's Nan O'Leary now. Back when I was in college, we'd have Thanksgiving dinner with them when they would come out for the Skins game out of PGA West. Meeting Pete and Alice Dye, meeting the head of golf marketing and membership and operations for Marriott. So I was meeting all these really great people, but really had nothing to do with A, the radio business, or B, being industrial. So I said, maybe I can use those contacts to get into a business that would be a whole lot more fun than schlepping around industrial buildings. And I said, gosh, if I could just sell one golf course and be known as the guy that sells golf courses versus doing 1,000 leases in a year, I'd rather do that. So I kind of rolled the dice. The guy I was running for I was a junior broker, talked him into it. We went to our manager, said, here's what we want to try. Here's the case for it, made a little business plan, and we did it. And I remember sitting down with our manager and he says, industrial and golf have nothing to do with each other. So I'm going to come back to you in 6 months, and you're going to tell me whether you're a golf broker or you're going to be an industrial broker. And I remember going through the thought process and everything. And got back in front of our manager, and he says, "Okay, what are you going to be?" And my partner says, "I'm an industrial broker." And I said, "I'm a golf broker." And from there, it was no turning back.
At that point, had you actually sold a golf resort or gotten your first listing?
No, we had not. Truly trying to understand the business, it was difficult, but we had received a really good listing from the Resolution Trust Corporation, which was the RTC. We had a premier auction. I remember it was the DoubleTree Resort and Desert Princess Country Club out in the desert. And we had that listing and we had another listing out in Palm Springs. And that was enough for me to understand that I think that this would work.
How long did it take you to feel that you truly understood the business?
I had heard something a long time ago. I think with habits or good habits or even understanding anything, it takes 6 years to really truly understanding and feel like you're somewhat of an expert. I remember when we were on that first listing in the Desert Princess and the DoubleTree. Back then, there was no hotel broker. The other broker that was assigned to work on this sale of this large hotel and country club was an apartment broker. That was the closest we had to a hotel broker. And I remember going there and playing golf with the general manager and having a wonderful day out there. Then he goes, "Okay, let's go back to our office." And we sit down and he says, "Okay, what questions do you have for me?" And at that point, we had no idea what we were doing. So I said, "Well, we're going to reboot. Been a long day. We'll come back tomorrow morning and we'll get after it." We walked out to the parking lot. I remember the senior broker that I talked into doing this. He says, "Dude, we have no idea what we're doing." And I said, "Yeah, but we got all night to figure it out." So we were up till 2 or 3 in the morning, just going through all the financials, and he understood financials. We were looking at those and developed a series of questions that we'd go back the next day and discuss it with him. I think these young people probably get tired of hearing this, but that's the old, fake it till you make it. And that's exactly what happened.
How did you back then end up valuing these resorts? There wasn't like a CoStar database or anything. Were there comps? I mean, how did you figure that out?
That was one of the reasons why this senior broker decided to get out of the business. He says, "Hey, I don't understand why anybody would buy something that's losing money because a lot of these golf courses back then in the 90s were losing money." And I said, "I don't either, but they are." And what they were doing is these experienced golf operators were buying these properties from residential developers and others that had either failed or, if you understand the golf business, the reason a golf course is built is it's an amenity. They sell always below replacement cost. Of the hundreds I've sold, always below replacement cost. That means that you got to be making money at something else. And that something else is typically residential land, residential sales. They sell out through all the residential homes. They're making all the lot premiums with a beautiful golf course view. That's how they make their money. Then it's time to monetize the golf course. They sell that, but they've been running the golf course unprofitably. And a new operator has the ability and the understanding to go in and what the changes to make it profitable. So it took me a while to realize that's what they were doing. So then we started running pro formas and understanding there was margins. If a golf course is grossing $5 or $6 million, you should be able to bring 15-20% to the bottom line. There's a lot of variables that go into that: the cost of water, location, whether it's private or public. But we were able to understand metrics, and there were enough comps, hard to get, especially back then, but there were enough to understand that transactions were taking place. And so we were using that as a basis for understanding value.
My background is in office, and Class A office buildings, trophy buildings put in amenities like fitness centers and rooftop terraces, conference rooms, and they don't make money on that. But they're not really losing money on that. They have an initial investment. I still don't understand how folks take a look at a golf course community, let alone if it has a hotel attached to it and tennis courts and swimming pools. Dig into that.
So they're all amenities for the residential community. And there's an associated premium attached to lots that are on a golf course. Back in the old days, the developers would buy a chunk of land and they would build a golf course on a couple hundred acres, 150, 200 acres. It's approximately what it takes to build a golf course. And then they build out residential, and that residential number was somewhere around 500 units. They learned that only about 20 to 25% of those people in a community actually support a golf course. So if it's a private golf course, you can run the numbers. That's only 150 people. That's not enough to support a golf course. So they started building more homes and making larger parcels. So more homes that were feeding the golf course and making it successful. Then the idea of mandatory social membership came up, which is an idea that has become very popular and really quite necessary in order to have a successful, healthy club, because there's nothing worse than having a club that's not healthy, that's not being supported. And so it's strictly an amenity, just like as you described. Any of the amenities in an office building, same thing.
From outside, from my perspective, your career looks pretty darn glamorous. You're selling resorts in Maui and luxury communities. My experience is doing leases in mostly Class A office buildings in big cities like Washington, D.C. and elsewhere. Is your job as a broker really as glamorous as it seems?
You know, it doesn't suck. It's better, and as I told you, I got into the business because I'm schlepping around industrial buildings in Miramar, San Diego, wearing a tie, sipping on a big gulp, and asking people if they had enough warehouse space. It sucked. And when I'm touring a golf course, I'm driving the golf course. Now, there is a big misconception that we play a lot of golf. We don't, but we do play the golf courses at least once that we're selling, so we can explain things. I also think the people in the hospitality business, especially the golf business, are really great people and they're fun to be around, nice people. It's not without its challenges, because there are a lot of challenges. One of the biggest difficulties in this business, and for people to wrap their minds around, is that we're hunting big game always. I don't close. People say, how many deals you close a year? It could be 4 or 5. It could be 10. It could be 11 or 12. I think the most in a year we've closed is 12. But for 2 years, I remember them very distinctly, in the recession of 2000, the tech bubble burst, which you remember, where I closed 0 deals. But the very next year, I was the top broker within San Diego County. The deal cycle for these projects, David, is very long. I think the average golf course is probably 13, 14 months. We do deal with properties that are on a fast track, especially if it's a bankruptcy. But for the most part, it's 13, 14 months. I had a transaction close last year. It was 20,000 acres in Belize. Golf course wasn't included, but 1,000 lots, 2 closed resorts, 2 airstrips, 2 private islands. It was extraordinary property that the federal government had seized, and we represented the federal government selling it to recoup. It was part of a Ponzi scheme called Sanctuary Belize. That was 3.5 years from the first call that I took with these trustees to when we actually closed it. So it's not for the faint of heart, and you have to have tenacity, and you have to understand you're not going to be closing these every month. My wife has a favorite saying. She says, "You're either a zero or a hero," and that's really the way it is when you're hunting big game, like big capital market sales.
So these private fancy golf communities, how do they differ from the big on the beach hotel resort golf course properties?
Well, the difference between a standalone golf course and what you described is significantly more cash flow, and significantly more buyers. There are more buyers looking for cash flowing resorts on the beach than there are for standalone golf courses. It's just a deeper pool. So anytime we have a golf course and a resort hotel, it's a much deeper pool of buyers interested in that, because most of the hotel buyers that are out there, they're hotel focused, they're hotel centric. They don't like golf. They really don't like golf. And golf guys, for the most part, don't really like hotels either. They don't really understand the hotel business. So sometimes we actually are involved in properties where we'll spin off the golf to one and the hotel, or more commonly, it's the residential land to another. Residential developers really don't like golf because in their mindset, this is costing me money and it's a necessary evil, but we have to have it to get our lot premiums. Oftentimes we'll be in a situation where we're selling the golf course to one group and the land to another group. The buyer pool is significantly deeper for resort properties, hotels, even standalone hotels.
What kind of buyers are out there for a private golf course community versus something on the beach in Naples, Florida, or the Caribbean or Hawaii?
Uh, there's a lot of crossover between all of those. And when you say resorts, I'm assuming you're meaning a golf course attached to a hotel. A significant part of our business is selling standalone golf courses, high-end standalone golf courses. The buyers of standalone golf courses are large private equity firms that are backing golf operators. A good example would be Invited, the former Club Corp. that was recently repurchased, I should say. KSL just recently repurchased Invited, which is a significant amount of clubs, and they paid a very good premium for that. Bain Capital recently purchased Concert Golf, which is a portfolio of golf courses. When I mean recent, I'm talking about the last 6 months. These gigantic purchases have taken place because there is such a desire to get into the golf business because it's a great business and we think it's got a long runway based on its popularity right now and that they sell below replacement cost, huge barriers to entry to get into the business. So you've got private equity companies that back these large operators, like Arcus is another example. Heritage Golf is another example. And then you have a lot of companies that are interested in buying golf courses and they raise their money with friends and family. They have a portfolio of investors that go along with them. And this is true of all types of real estate. They're syndicators, as we used to call them in the old days.
Mhm.
They find a deal, they've got the operational expertise, they throw money into the deal, but they're out there raising the majority of their capital. So you have a lot of those groups out there trying to buy properties, and a lot of them have been very, very successful, and a lot of them have great track records of doing that. And then finally, there's the rich guy. There's the high net worth individual, ultra high net worth individual that wants to own a golf course. I mean, if I was these guys, I'd want to own a golf course. It can be a fun business as long as you got somebody else managing it, because managing a golf course, like selling a golf course, is not for the faint of heart. It's a lot of work. A lot of things go into it. It's business. It's attached to a gigantic piece of real estate. So it's a lot of work to run these golf courses. So when we see rich guys that are interested in buying golf, we often are tasked with pairing them up with an operator. And there's a lot of operators. So it's big corporations that do fundraising, syndication. It's private equity companies that own these golf companies that are buying these golf courses. It's high net worth individuals that maybe they're teamed up with Joe Blow, the head pro, who wants to own a golf course and he's got his rich buddy in his pocket. That's kind of, and then there's also foreigners. So there's foreign nationals that are buying. For example, the Koreans and Korean Americans are huge buyers of golf courses, especially in Southern California. They love the golf business. They're just golf crazy and they love the business. It's a business opportunity attached to land because a lot of their business is business. They're very comfortable in that space. So we have a lot of foreign interest.
I know you've also sold properties that have marinas and ski resorts as an amenity, including the Yellowstone Club. Now, you gotta be a really, really great broker to afford that place. Tell me about the Yellowstone
Ha!
Club.
I said I sold it. I'm not a member there. The Yellowstone Club was probably our most notable transaction. I remember getting a call from our head of capital markets at the time. This is 2008, I think it was December. We were working, getting a business plan together, my partner and I, and got a call and said, "I hear you've sold a ski resort." I said, "Well, what do you mean?" He goes, "Well, did you sell Shanty Creek?" I was thinking back about it. I just talked to somebody the other day who knew Shanty Creek. Shanty Creek is in Michigan. It's a golf resort with like 3 or 4 golf courses, but they also have 2 or 3 chairlifts. It is kind of something to do in the wintertime in Michigan. Michigan is not known for all their great ski resorts, but yeah, I said, "Well, yeah, I sold a ski resort. If you call Shanty Creek a ski resort, I call it a golf resort that happens to have a couple lifts." Well, that's good enough because nobody else has sold anything like that. So we put together an RFP for a property called the Yellowstone Club, which I'd heard about, but didn't really recognize the significance of it at the time. I knew it was private skiing. I didn't know at the time that the mountain was the size of Deer Valley, that was privately skied. At the time, it was the owner was Tim Blixeth and Idra Blixeth, and we represented Idra, and she got divorced from Tim, and I had to put the thing in bankruptcy because there was about $400 million worth of Credit Suisse debt on the property. This was 2008, the great financial collapse.
Mhm.
And really before the collapse had happened, but she realized very quickly that she couldn't get $400 million for the property. She's underwater. We took it through bankruptcy and sold it across Harbor Capital. And it was not only great experience for me in selling a legit ski mountain and put me on the map for selling those type of properties. It was also a lesson in selling properties through a bankruptcy process. It's called a Section 363, which is a way you get a stalking horse bidder, then you get others to bid against them in an auction. And it's a whole process that you have to be very well versed in and don't mind being put on the stand, which is the most unnerving thing of a Section 363 when you're put on the stand and grilled by a bunch of lawyers that are a lot smarter than you. Not a lot of people that do that. That was my really first experience in that, and also the ski resort. And from there, my career included ski resorts. We sold a number of them. We represented Lehman Brothers selling Moonlight Basin across on the other side of Lone Mountain, if you're familiar with Big Sky.
Hmm.
Sold properties, Grouse Mountain up in Vancouver, number of ski resorts throughout the country.
I also have a home in Annapolis and do a bit of sailing and boating there. What about marinas?
So marinas and ski resorts and golf courses fall under what we call the leisure umbrella. They are all business opportunities that are attached to a chunk of real estate. They're not really real estate. I think back when CBRE allowed me to move forward and sell a golf course. At the time, we weren't allowed to sell businesses. Business would be, a dry cleaner, or it would be a bar, it'd be a restaurant, it would be a farm or something that had cash flowing. Well, golf course is all those things. So is a marina. A marina is a business that's attached to a chunk of water. So a lot of the marinas that we've been involved with recently have been part of larger transactions. For example, Sanctuary Belize had a working marina, and they're part of larger master plan and very complicated properties. But again, it's an amenity for selling homes that happens to be attached to a big piece of real estate, just like a golf course, just like a ski resort.
When you got started, you get a list of golf courses somewhere and you just start, how do you figure out who owns the darn thing? And you start cold calling the owner and say, hey, do you want to sell? I mean, how'd you get going on that?
How do you cold call? How do you source business? Well, that's the beauty of specialization. When I first started, yes, we would find out who owned the property. One of the benefits of being with CBRE is the network. And we would get calls from the head of capital markets regarding the Yellowstone Club, like, hey, we've got this crazy golf course listing. Do we have a golf crew? Yes, we do. They're out in San Diego. So the inbounds from CBRE are tremendous. And then once you do it for a while, in my case, 37 years, the phone rings. It doesn't take long to Google who sells golf courses, who sold what, and with press and with social media. The phone just rings, and it's people that have seen what we've done. But you're right. In the very beginning, it was hard. It was trying to track and monitor every golf course in Southern California, then kind of expand from there. But inevitably, the phone would ring, and it'd be somebody from one of our other offices saying, "We have this opportunity come up. Is this something that's in your sweet spot?"
Right. So what's a day in the life of Jeff Woolson today as a vice
hmm
chairman running this practice?
And this goes to your broader topic, the great broker. One what makes it. I'm not saying I'm great. I'm just saying I'm old. Let's put it that.
Jeff,
You need to change it from the great broker to the old broker. So the old broker gets up at 6:30 in the morning because he's already getting emails from the East Coast where it's 9:30 because we have listings back there. The old broker wakes up, and I had a call at 8 o'clock this morning with our Dublin office. We've got several international listings. So the day begins early and it ends late. We've got several listings in Hawaii, which is 3 hours behind us. So when it's 4 or 5 o'clock in Hawaii, it's 7 o'clock here. So depending on what's going on, it starts early and ends late. I've got a really great staff that is instrumental in helping me out, from a junior broker named Brandon to a senior underwriter named Jeff. And then Daphne is on our team, and she makes all our packages look really good. And it's great keeping us organized and keeping that going. But the day varies. It literally started this morning at 6:30 in the morning on a bankruptcy case in Knoxville, Tennessee, and followed by an 8 o'clock call with our Dublin, Ireland office.
I'm pretty good at sitting on a beach and drinking a Mai Tai at a fancy resort, but I'm a very
Me
below
too.
average.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
but I'm a very below average golfer. What skills does it take to be good at selling resorts?
Well, it's no different than any successful niche. In fact, about 3 years ago, I was the number one broker in San Diego. And I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to be up here. They give you a couple minutes to impart some wisdom on the young guys and women in the field that are coming up. I said, I don't know if I'm ever going to be back here, but I guarantee you, the person that is up here that's going to be addressing you as the number one broker, they're going to tell you the same thing. It's hard work. It's hard work. It's tenacity. It's not giving up. And you know what? A lot of it, because this is a business that can beat you down. Just when you think you got a deal closed, boom, something pops up and the deal doesn't close. So you got to have a positive attitude. You have to have great communication skills. I think great negotiating skills. And I think you have to have a dazzling personality, David. I was kidding.
I think you're demonstrating that right
I,
now.
I will tell you this, that I do think one of the most undersold skill sets that a good broker has is giving good phone. Back in my college days and right out of college, I was on the radio with radio stations. I was a DJ. Yeah, I was a
What
DJ at
kind of
K-Rock.
station, by the way? What kind of station was it?
I was at KROQ in Pasadena. which was all the new music was breaking there. If you were a fan of new music and alternative rock, U2 was coming through. The Ramones were coming through. I saw the Ramones a couple times at Perkins Palace in Pasadena. All the new wave bands were coming in. I moved to San Diego to this cool San Diego State, and 91X had just changed formats to that rock of the 80s format. And I became the full-time, part-time disc jockey, meaning I was the guy they always called on to work part-time. I worked every weekend. And then the summer times, I covered every disc jockey's vacation from the morning show to the afternoon, all through the 80s. So it was that 80s music. That's the kind of music that I was selling. I think back to those days and talking in front of a microphone, I think helped me be able to talk on the phone, to complete sentences, to control conversation, the way I make a point, the way I communicate. And I think being on a phone and being able, because so much is done via Zoom and via phone these days, it's so important. And you don't have to have a deep voice. You just have to be able to use your voice. David, you control your voice very well. We got a podcast, and as a broker, I'm sure you can appreciate being able to communicate on a phone is just so critical.
Well, I don't know how good of a podcaster I am, but I have a face made for podcasting, Jeff.
Yes, that's it. That's why I was never on the television side of things.
What advice do you have for a young broker who says, man, this is what I want to do? I don't want to sell office buildings on Park Avenue or downtown San Francisco. I want to do what Jeff does.
I think there's two ways to do it. One, you have to get on with somebody who does something in the leisure space. And that could be hotel. I guess all the time, what would I do differently? If I did something differently, it would be to focus on the hotel space because it's a lot more lucrative. Those properties trade more often. Golf courses, the buyer pool is not infinite. And there's a lot of hotel buyers out there and they trade more often, mostly because you can get debt on them and you can't really get debt on golf courses. You can, but it's very difficult. But hotels trade on cap rates and cash flow. It's funny. I fall under the CBRE hotel banner. And when I'm dealing with the hotel guys in our group and we're taking a listing on a golf course and a hotel and the golf course is not making money, how do you sell this? How do you? And so it's like what I told the other. I don't know why they're buying it, but they are. But hotels are just a more easier way to make a living selling hotels. So I would either get on with some sort of leisure space. Maybe it's marinas, maybe it's selling hotels, or if you get on with a golf course broker, because the first 10 years of your career coming out of college, you're not going to have a lot of success because you're not trustworthy. Not because you're not trustworthy, it's because no one will trust you. They're not going to trust you with a valuable asset. You're going to have to hitch your wagon to somebody who has the gray hair, or in your case, David, no hair. So you're going to have to build some credibility by being with a team that has that credibility and it attaches to you until you can start building your business and developing the relationships. I've always said that you can develop a relationship, I think, 10 years up, meaningful relationships, 10 years up and 10 years down. You start going over, maybe it's 15 years up, 15 years down, but these kids coming out of college, I've got nothing in common with them except my kids just graduated from college. And I don't like their same music. We don't have the same I've been through 3 recessions. They don't even know what a recession is. So we don't really have anything in common. But the guys I do business with, we have all kinds of things in common because we're kids of the same age. They like the same music. They went through the same experiences through the great financial crisis. So it's developing credibility through relationships, and you're going to have to get on with somebody to start developing those relationships. The other part is during that 10 years that you're really working your tail off and building value and developing relationships, you could go to work for one on the principal side of things. You could go to work for one of these large golf companies and get into their acquisitions and get into analysis. There's a lot of these golf companies that are always looking for young, hungry people coming out of college that want to do analysis and understand. That's really a great way because then you could build it up from there. You build your experience, you understand how a golf course is valued, their perspective, looking at golf opportunities through their lens. I mean, it's invaluable. It's taken me many years to understand looking through the lens of a buyer and what makes a great golf property a good deal for them as well. And that would be the other way to go about it.
Jeff, to the extent that any of my Park City buddies actually listen to my podcast, Wohali just sold it. You were involved in that. Just tell me a little bit about Wohali.
In general, Park City is, I don't want to say bulletproof because no market is bulletproof, but Park City is one of the most in-demand markets in the entire United States, if not the entire world, for what we do, the second home business. The second home business right now is slumping. Land is at the lowest values I've ever seen land worth in 37 years, primarily because of construction costs. Secondarily, it's because second home demand has slumped. And we have this big hangover from COVID when everybody was buying second homes and figuring out how to work from home. And that dynamic has changed forever, being able to work from home. But people are selling second homes as fast as, they're doing it the same reasons they sold them the first time around. And that's because, we just don't use it all that much. Park City is one of those markets that there's still big demand in Park City. And quite frankly, it has a lot to do with its politics. We're seeing this mass exodus from states like California and Oregon and Washington and New York, and that's what that fed a lot of this stuff. And Park City has positioned itself being pro business. It's got great infrastructure and everything. So long story, everybody loves Park City. Well, Holly was built outside of Park City a little bit, and it was built with some EB5 funding. And EB5 funding has become a very effective way to finance these second home areas. And I think what happened with Holly, the developers got a little over their skis, to use a Park City
Hmm.
analogy, and just didn't do everything exactly perfect. Not that you have to be exactly perfect as a developer, but it's hard to be a developer. You think it's hard being a broker? Being a developer is even harder. The risks they take, everything they have to pour into it. The reason why a lot of these developments right now are struggling is because of the cost of construction and second home slipping a little bit. Even in Park City, home sales in the second home market still not as robust as it was 2 or 3 years ago. And construction costs certainly have not tempered. They're still sky high.
Did you play Holly, and what did you think?
I did not play Wohali. I drove Wohali. Very experienced golf course operator called me and says, "It's one of the most dramatic golf courses I've ever seen in my life." And in fact, he felt like he was taking his life into his hands going up that switchback on that one hole. So I think the private lender that took it back, part of their plan is to soften Wohali a little bit because it was made a little bit too dramatic. You want to have a club that people enjoy playing every day. And I think the reputation of Wohali was, maybe that's not that club, but with some softening of the property and softening of some of the golf holes, it is truly one of those dramatic golf courses you'll ever see. What did you think of it?
I haven't played there yet. I have a lot of friends who have told me exactly what you said. My speed is more the 9-hole course that my club, Tuhei Talisker, just put in.
Yes. Yeah, that's it.
So, Jeff, you've been at this for a long time. You've had tremendous success. How do you spend your money?
I do invest in golf courses. I'm invested in several golf courses. In fact, I'm an investor in a little property called Grass Clippings, which is out in Tempe, Arizona. It's a par 3 golf course, fully lit. So in the summertime, tonight, we're taking tee reservations at 10 p.m. So it's a really great concept. These young guys that put that together, they're great. I'm also an investor in the Grass League, which is a league of teams that are par 3 and they play for money, and it's like a tournament type of setting where they broadcast the Grass Clippings Championship at the Grass Clippings golf course on the Golf Channel, and you can look it up. And I'm a part owner in the LA Roses, and Mark Wahlberg's also a part owner in the golf show that's called Municipal. There's a new franchise just sold recently in Las Vegas. So these really, really good pro and semi-pro players are playing in this league. So I'm an investor in that. But fun-wise, I love to fish. I'm a fisherman. I like to spend money on fishing trips. I just got back from your beautiful state and fished the Green River.
Hmm.
Did 3-day float down the Green River, fly fishing out of Flaming Gorge Reservoir. It was phenomenal. Big brown trout eating dry flies, stunning scenery. I'm hard pressed to really, I gotta say, that's probably one of the top 5 fisheries I've ever fished. It's beautiful. So yeah, I just bought a brand new Orvis 6 weight for that trip. So there, spent some money on that.
There you go. How do you give back? Any charities that are near and dear to your heart?
Yeah, I'm a big, big fan of the military charities. I think that they're underappreciated. I remember going with my son to a military charity up in Camp Pendleton, which is right adjacent to us here in San Diego. And we were handing out food and diapers and provisions to these wives. And I'm scratching my head. Why is this happening? Why are these people having to line up to get food and diapers and provisions. And there's a number of reasons behind that. And mostly relates to when the guy signed up, he came in at X level, but while he was X level, he got married. And the Y level hasn't kicked in, which is wife and family. And these people struggle, and they're the tip of the spear. C3 Foundation is another one that I contribute to. There's a Navy SEAL program. We've got one of two Navy SEAL bases here in San Diego. Brand new Navy SEAL headquarters for the odd numbered Navy SEALs here in San Diego, and of course the other ones are in Norfolk, out Virginia, at the even numbers. But the new facility built down in Coronado is staggering. It's unbelievable, and it's appropriate for these guys. They're the tip of the spear. They're the ones that need to be supported. And so those are some of my fun charities.
Are you ready for the lightning round?
Yes, I'm ready for that. Do I need to press a button or anything, or just
Here we
respond quick?
go.
Okay,
All right. You were a DJ. Favorite band?
you too.
Golf or fly fishing?
Fly fishing every time, and I love golf. I love golf, but I'll go to places sometimes where a friend of mine has a resort outside of Vail, and all those lakes are loaded with big trout.
Favorite golf course that you've ever played?
I'm going to give you two because it's not just course, it's club. Down here in San Diego, it's Rancho Santa Fe. And you said you've
Mhm,
been to Rancho Santa Fe. It's
mhm.
a great club. It's really owned by the community. And it's just a fabulous group of people that are members there. It's a great golf course. But best, Bel Air. Bel Air Country Club in Los Angeles. I've been fortunate to have a friend of mine who's a member there. I've played in some of the member guests. That is truly a special, special place.
Okay, besides Jack Nicklaus, the most famous golfer you've ever met.
I just recently met and had dinner with Bryson DeChambeau, and he was so great. He's a very gracious guy, extremely smart, what you read about him, a really great guy. We were in Dallas, Texas, and a fun guy to get to know.
A sunrise tea time or a sunset cocktail?
The latter. I'm about ready to do a sunrise tea time with my son this week because he's got a week off, and we're going out to PJ West, and we're going to play out there. And we got to get out there early because it's going to be 110 degrees, so it's going to be a sunrise tea time. And I will probably have a sunrise cocktail at the same time to soften the blow.
The best career advice that you've ever received?
Move to where your office is. I mean, it really
If
was. I remember a guy telling me this, and at the time I was living, we were working at Rancho Bernardo. I go, I'm not moving to Rancho Bernardo. Luckily, they closed that office, and I moved to where the Carlsbad office was, and I've been in Carlsbad ever since.
okay, if you weren't a great broker, what would you be doing?
When I was exploring other things to do at the time, so this is 1989, and I became fascinated with product placement in movies and TV. You see it all the time now. There's the guy drinking the Coke. That's not by accident. It started with movie E.T. when they used those Reese's Pieces. Remember that? That was the first product placement, but that was like in the 80s. Product placement in 1989 was just in its infancy, and I thought that would be fascinating to be involved in working with advertisers, because that was my background. Because from on air, I went to advertising sales because there was no money in being on air. And I thought that the advertising part of that was just fascinating.
How's this for product placement, Jeff? A great
I love it.
broker coffee mug? Jeff, lastly, when someone says, "Oh man, Wilson, he's a great broker," what do you hope they mean?
As you know, there's only one metric that we get measured by, and that's closing transactions and the income that you earn. And it's kind of sad. Every year, the rankings are based on how much money you made the company. But really, for me, being a good broker is understanding our clients, which are sellers. 95% of what we're doing is representing sellers and helping guide them through a process of selling an asset that this may be the only golf course they ever sell. And oftentimes it could be a residential company that just, we're done selling this. I don't have a lot of repeat clients as sellers. I have a lot of repeat clients that are buyers, same group of buyers that I'm going to, and new buyers all the time. But the sellers, oftentimes, this is the only transaction I'm going to do with them because it's the last time that they're ever going to own a golf course or a marina or a ski resort. And it's rewarding when I'm able to really add value and help them navigate a process that isn't like a normal process of selling an office building or an industrial building or a retail center. They're involved in those too, and they know what's involved with that, but they have no idea of the complexities of all the things that have to go in a golf course because a golf course, as I said, it's a business that's attached to a big bunch of real estate and has all the problems of a business. It has all the problems of of a real large land transaction as well. And oftentimes it's overwhelming. So when I can help that's what it means to me to be a great broker.
Jeff, you've been a great guest. Thanks so much for coming on. I'm disappointed that your dog didn't barge into the room today. I think
I am too.
everyone would have liked to see that.
Yes.
I really appreciate you telling your story with my audience.
You're welcome. Anytime, David. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Great Broker Podcast. If you enjoyed this conversation, follow the show and share it with someone who wants to become a great broker. See you next time.